It makes sense that the first season of At the Podium ends with Charlie Davies. His story of rising to the top of the professional soccer world from unlikely beginnings embodies much of what the first season has been about. That greatness, creativity, and authentic self-expression begin when you say yes to the unexpected turn of events that life constantly serves to us all. His life has been about overcoming immense personal setbacks, one that almost cost him his own life, and coming back from unforeseen detours to experience what it means to compete as an elite athlete in the Olympics and play as part of a World Cup team. Charlie's incredible story teaches us that each new day is a gift. Each sunrise is a second chance to live. And each interaction we have with another person is an opportunity to put a smile on someone else's face. Hello, and welcome to At the Podium with me, Patrick Huey. At the Podium is a multimedia platform that brings together people from a diverse background of lives, careers, and experiences who all share one thing in common. They have stepped fully into the transformative power of finding and raising their voices to make an impact on the world we live in today. At the Podium holds a space for everyone to share their stories, to be heard, and to bring us inspiration. Today, I'm thrilled to share the podium with Charlie Davies. Charlie Davies is a former Olympian and a retired 12-year professional soccer player who has passionately immersed himself in community service while uplifting others through inspiration and positive reinforcement. Davies serves as the director of the Quinn Impact Fund, the Quinn House's philanthropic arm, working closely alongside co-chairs Kana Kanchala and Linda Whitlock. First joining the Quinn House team as a brand ambassador and member of the selection committee, Davies' dedication to philanthropic efforts and creating a spark for change shone through. At the Quinn Impact Fund, Davies is responsible for directing the club's fundraising initiatives, donor engagements, fostering relationships with nonprofits and corporations, as well as the philanthropic member programming. Leading and motivating the Quinn House's culture of giving, Davies' role also sees him developing the fund to ensure its legacy and impact closely follow its core pillars of equity, inclusion, and opportunity, youth and education, health and human services, arts and culture, and innovation and discovery. Davies' professional career as a soccer player spanned the globe, playing in France, Sweden, and Denmark, as well as stateside in Major League Soccer. During this time, Davies was a member of the U.S. men's national team, and in 2008, he went to the Olympics. He continues his love of soccer, serving as a media personality and broadcast analyst for CBS and the New England Revolution, along with being a motivational speaker. On his life journey, Davies became heavily involved in serving the community through mentoring and supporting those in need. Davies' recent philanthropic credits include serving as a member of the Philanthropic Board of Advisors at Boston Children's Hospital, a board member at Beacon Academy, as a New England Revolution Club ambassador, focusing on sponsorship, fundraising, and community relations, and as a spokesperson for the American Cancer Society's Real Men Wear Pink campaign. Davies attended Boston College and resides on the South Shore of Massachusetts. Before we hear from Charlie, I want to invite you to share At the Podium with the people in your lives. If you find our conversation today valuable, and I know that you will, take a screenshot and share on your Instagram and tag @thepodium_Patrick Huey. Or if you're on LinkedIn or Facebook, share our links there. Your shares, likes, and 5-star written reviews help grow our audience and move us up the charts. I am grateful for your support in this capacity. Charlie, welcome to At the Podium.
Thank you. And I'm very excited for this conversation.
I know I've been wanting to talk to you since we first met 6 months ago when I moved to Boston and we had a meeting at the Quinn House where we were both working. And I thought this man's story really needs to be something that people hear because it's really one of the most inspirational stories that I've ever heard in my life. And I don't say that to be dramatic. It's truly, your story is life-changing.
I feel like I've lived at least 7 lives, but, I live for the day. I make the most of every single day. So I've enjoyed all the ups and downs throughout my life. And I think, we were put in each other's path for a reason. So let's fire away.
Let's do it. So Charlie, you have had such an impressive career as a professional athlete. You were a part of the men's Olympic team in 2008 in Beijing. You played professionally for 12 years in Europe and America, and you were a contender for the Herman Trophy, which is like the Heisman Trophy for soccer. It recognizes the top male and female soccer players in the country. The game has been such a significant part of your life, and it continues to be to this day. So I want to know, what did competing at such a high elite level teach you about yourself?
It just taught me that you can't take the game too serious. I wanted to be the best. I literally wanted to be the best, and I was going to do whatever it took. And just from growing up, I felt that hard work was going to take me to the top because I had the natural ability that you can't teach. I had the speed and the quickness, the athleticism, but the only way you can get to the top is never being satisfied and staying hungry. And so being a professional athlete, it comes with a lot of expectation. And I think for me, it was, not only do I have to be such a dedicated athlete and dedicated to my craft, the commitment, but being a person that takes in all the different cultures that come by your way through the people that you meet. And, the Olympics is the top of Mount Olympus. You're talking about the athletic events and getting a chance to meet every single athlete from every country and every sport. It's life-changing. And you're talking about enriching your life. And I think sports taught me how to connect with people. That was the easiest way for me to make friends, to feel accepted, because if I excelled in sport, then people were more apt to like you and accept you for who you are, no matter what you looked like, no matter what you believed. And so that was kind of my ticket to society and to success in a way.
It was your father who introduced you to soccer, correct?
He's the one who got me to believe in myself and work hard and train me every day. But it was an accident, the way I came across the sport. I thought I was trying out for Pop Warner football, and I brought home the permission slip and signed it. He lit up when he saw the form and said, "This is what you want to do?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm super excited." And he brought me to the store and got me soccer cleats and soccer ball and shin guards. And I knew I made a mistake. But I couldn't say anything. I couldn't turn back at that moment because, it's my father and he was so happy. And so I went to the tryout. I didn't make it. I was disappointed. I could tell he was disappointed. He just looked at me and said, "Do you want to be good?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." And he said, "Say no more." So from that next day on, he'd come home from work, pick me up, we'd go to the field, and we trained till dark every single day. The dream didn't really start for me, because I had still never seen the sport at the highest level until the World Cup came in 1994. I was 8 years old. He took me for my birthday, my 8th birthday. And then I said, this is the sport I want to be a part of. And I got to do whatever it takes to play in a World Cup.
I had no idea, Charlie, that you did not make the team the first time you tried out.
Oh yeah, I was cut. I was my first team, my first tryout, cut.
How did you have it within you to say, okay, I do want to be good?
I never wanted to give up in anything I did. I never wanted to be a quitter. One, I didn't like to lose. I didn't like to fail. I knew that if my father was going to be there for me to train, then why would I say no? And it brought me and my father closer together as well. And so like any kid, you want to feel loved and you want to feel that you're making your father proud. So that was kind of my way of trying to keep him close and not having him disappear.
Your father is from Gambia, correct? He's from Africa. Had he played soccer in Africa?
He played it his whole life growing up. And then when he came to this country, he came to play college soccer in Vermont. And after he left Vermont, it was, I'm going to play semi-pro soccer all across Massachusetts, which is what he did. And all of his friends that I came across when I was growing up said, your father was a very good player. He was special. And so, my I guess my goal was like, I got to be better than him.
And you kind of did it. When did you know that you were going to be that good? Because you go out for the team the first time, you don't make it. You try out the second time and you make it. And you're playing through junior high school. When did you know that you were going to be as good as you are?
I'd say high school. I was 15 years old. I was selected to play for the Region 1 Olympic Development Program team. And so basically from Virginia all the way up to Maine and as far west as New York and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, they select the best players, 18 of the best players from the Eastern region. And so I got selected. I was a starter. We went to Europe. We played in this tournament in Austria, and we were playing against the Austrian national team the first game of the tournament. And in this tournament, Manchester United had a team, Stuttgart from Germany, some of the bigger clubs in the world. And I scored a bicycle kick in the first game. And I was like on the news, the local news in Austria. I got a newspaper with a photo of me doing the bicycle kick. And then I scored a couple more goals in that tournament. And when I got home, my father received a call from Manchester United and said, what is Charlie's passport situation? Would he be able to come over? And I knew at that moment, I have what it takes to play in Europe and be a special player.
So were you able at 15, in the moment of your life to really grasp what was happening?
No, not at all. I was very fortunate to be in a private boarding school. So I was living on campus. My life had completely changed since I had been accepted to this school, because now I had role models as teachers, people, giving me access and opportunity and showing me what exists in the world. I was also wrestling in the winter, and that was a sport that really transformed me as an athlete and as a person. Building the mental toughness, building the team camaraderie, being a leader. I was the captain of the wrestling team in high school. I was not captain of the soccer team. So, that kind of puts things into perspective, where I leaned on my skill in soccer. And I think I had a little bit of a swagger and kind of just like, let me lead by example, not so much lead as a teammate. And then when I was wrestling, I had to lead as a teammate because I wasn't the best. I was one of the top wrestlers, but I wasn't the best. So I wanted to lead by example, but also pick everyone up. And I think that sport really taught me the importance of teamwork, because in soccer, you could kind of be more of an individual. You could help the team win. But in wrestling, I really understood what it meant to be a leader.
Why do you think that when you first got involved and went to that first soccer tryout that you didn't make it? Because you clearly had the sauce to compete at the level that you eventually went on to compete at. So what wasn't working that very first time that you put your hat in the ring to play?
I had never seen the sport. I didn't know what I was doing. Literally, I would run out and, you try and kick the ball. You don't know anything about tactics. You don't know anything about footwork. So it was almost like you're going in blind. That's literally what happened, because I had never seen the sport before. I had grown up just playing football. That was my favorite sport. I wanted to be an NFL running back. That was the goal. And so all of a sudden I'm on the pitch with 12 kids, and I'm looking at my father like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so I didn't make the team, but I knew I was faster. I knew I was more agile and quicker than the kids I was playing with, but I didn't know how to play the sport. And I think that's when my father said, all right, enough's enough. If you want to be good at the sport, and I think you can be, then I'm going to train you. And if you agree to this, just know there is no turning back. I'm going to push you. And I think, there would be times where I would train till 8 p.m. at night, 7:30, and I'd be crying because he'd have me do the same drill over and over again. And I'd be like, I'm good. And he's like, no, again, you didn't get that right. And again, and I'd be crying, doing the drills. And then eventually I'd do it right. I'd score on the weekend. And so you're seeing the results from your training. As tough as it may be, as how many times I was crying and sad. You see, you scored 3 or 4 goals on the weekend, and he takes me to Taco Bell or McDonald's. That was always like my gift. Oh, okay, we're going to McDonald's or Taco Bell for your treat because you scored some goals and you basically excelled from the training. So when you're seeing the progress, you're like, oh, I got to keep working hard. And the harder I worked, the better the results I had on the pitch.
It's interesting, the role of fathers, because when you look at Venus and Serena, it was their dad who, in a way, had to hold the vision for them until they were mature enough to understand that they could hold the vision for themselves. And it sounds like that was a very similar journey for you with your dad to where you eventually went in your career.
100%. My father had his demons. He would disappear every now and then with his Friday paycheck, and he wouldn't come back till Sunday morning, sometimes Monday morning. And it drove my mother off the deep end, and she had a mental breakdown, then was diagnosed with a severe bipolar disorder from my father, I think, disappearing with a paycheck every now and then. So given that situation, my family always wanted the best for us, and he was going to do whatever it took to put me in the best position to succeed. And I'm always going to be grateful for that. He got me into Brooks School, a private boarding school that literally changed my life. I would not be the person I am today had I not had that experience. He pushed me in soccer. He was strict with me. He really embedded that work ethic in myself. Running, I'm in sixth grade. I'll never forget 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th grade. Through those years, after school, I'd come home and he'd have me run 2 miles. So all of a sudden, I'm that kid who's after school running 2 miles. Everyone's watching me, around the blocks, because basically it was elementary, middle school, and the high school all within like a 1 mile radius. So I'm running around the schools. I'm doing training till 6:30, 7 every single day. I'm running hills to end my training. And this is me as a 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old kid every day. Everyone's like, why do you do that? No one plays soccer. No one played soccer in Manchester, New Hampshire. It was like the minority if you played soccer. And then I was on the minority because it was basically all white kids. So, it was something that I'll always look back on and appreciate because as troubling as it was as a child at times, I was very fortunate that I had a father who wanted the best for me and was going to be there for me.
Charlie, how did you as a child handle that? I mean, it's a lot to take in when your dad is missing. Even if you understand why he's missing, what's happening, that's still a lot to take on and to work through for yourself. How did you do that?
I hated it whenever he would disappear, but it fueled me because I didn't want to be that when I grew up. I knew if I wanted to be someone else and be super successful and never leave my family at times and be, an all-star athlete, that I had to just work. And I loved being outside of my house, outside of our tiny little apartment, because I didn't have to think about those things. My release was training, was playing games and training. Sports was my release. I needed that. I didn't have any other avenue. I didn't have adults I could talk to. I didn't have anyone that could give me sense or advice or insight. I didn't have, I tried music. I tried the violin. That wasn't going to ever happen. You have to have money to have like teachers and lessons. We didn't have money. So the one thing that was the cheapest thing and allowed me to go out and express myself was sports, because all you needed was a ball. I could go outside and play barefoot. I could bring my younger brother, who's 2 years younger, and it was us two figuring out ways to just be outside, be outdoors, not think about home. And the dream was always to be a professional athlete.
It's interesting. I've talked to several college athletes or professional athletes, football players, and I hear it when you talk that there is a real ability to be able to control the mind. Whatever is going on, whether it's in the personal life or whether it's the physical pain that you're having to play through or overcome, or the training, there seems to be within professional athletes, and I see it in professional musicians who perform at very high levels, an ability to really narrow the focus, control the mind. Is that just natural for you?
I would say it's natural for me now. As a kid, I think I had to be that way to get by. There was a lot of distraction. There's a lot of pain in my life as a child. But the only way to raise that threshold was to commit myself and focus on the task at hand. And the task at hand was getting better, becoming the best. And I think there was a lot of kids in school that weren't going to hang out with me if I wasn't the best, athlete in school. If I, because who was going to come over to my house and hang out in a tiny apartment? I didn't have cable, I didn't have internet. So for the most part, it was, I'm going to hang out at my friends' houses and they're always going to accept me if I'm that super cool athlete, that can do everything and everyone wants them to be on your team. Right. So it was something I enjoyed because I saw where it was taking me.
It was your way out.
And my only way out.
Because you ended up going to Boston College and you played there until your junior year.
And that was also difficult because in my sophomore year, where I felt, okay, now I'm ready to go pro. I had played in an international tournament in Northern Ireland called the Milk Cup. I was the MVP. I was the Golden Boot leader, scored the most goals, and we won the tournament. And it was the first time the U.S. had won the Milk Cup. So there was a lot of European interest. Most of the players who excel in that tournament, they're going. It's not a question if they're going pro. They're typically going to a big club. So I figured I'm going to come back to college, play my sophomore season, and then depart. First game of sophomore year, I get a slide tackle from behind. I think I earned that tackle because I was taunting a little bit because we scored so early and we were playing Farley Dickinson, which is an outer conference game. And the defender came next play, took me out from behind and tore my meniscus. So I'm out 5 months. And, I had to repair the meniscus. There was non-weight bearing for 2 months, I believe, 2 or 3 months. It was a lot, 8 weeks, I want to say 8 to 12 weeks. It was really difficult. So I finally had depression for the first time in my life because I didn't have that outlet for the first time. It was one of those things where I'd wake up at like 4 p.m. every day. I'd eat once a day, wouldn't go to class. It was really difficult. And about 3 months in, my coach called me and said, I just got word that you haven't been to a single class. Is that correct? Is that true? And I said, yeah, it is true. And he's like, you need to see someone. You need to talk to a psychologist. So I went, talked to a psychologist. They were like, yeah, you're depressed. We gave you this diagnosis. We're going to give you a leave of absence. You come back and we're going to get you back on a plan so you can get back to real life and get back to playing the sport that you love. And so I got back. First spring game, I started training again. We're playing the New England Revolution. So, the pro team here, and I scored 2 goals in that game. And I was like, okay, my career is not over. My dream's not over. I'm still on the right path. And so the following year after my junior season, I had decided to leave. I signed with Nike and went to Ajax Amsterdam on a trial instead of taking the guaranteed contract for Major League Soccer.
Okay, this is very interesting because when you went pro after your junior year, you didn't make the team that you thought you were going to make. You were supposed to be with Ajax and you ended up in Stockholm with Hammarby IF. So again, like when you were a child, you go out for the team, you don't make the team you want to make, you go back, you regroup, and you end up in a new direction. I mean, and this is a theme that's going to recur in your life, Charlie. I mean, have you?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes.
How was that for you? Because I know what it's like to have a very specific idea of what you want your life to be. You chose Ajax for a reason. doesn't work out the way you want it, you go back, you regroup. And then you get to Stockholm and you're not scoring, you're starting, then you're subbing in, you're going through all these different ups and downs, the back and the forth of it. How did you get through that transition time in your life? How did you get your attitude right to make it through that first year?
Ajax is the best club in the world when it comes to, or at least top 3 in the world when it comes to developing talent. You go into Amsterdam, I'm living with a host family, so I'm staying with the host family, and the ups and downs as well. I get off the plane, I play in a game. It was okay, not bad, not good. And then the next game, I score a hat trick. And now I'm like, oh, I'm on an all-time high right now. I know I'm going to get signed. And then I pull my groin or hamstring in the final game, and they're like, we can't sign you. You're going to have to stay longer if there's an opportunity for us to sign you. And I'm like, I'm not staying longer. And so for me, it was the uncertainty. I don't know what's going to happen next. I can't go back to MLS. I turned them down. You can't go back, with your tail between your legs and be like, oh, I was just kidding. Can you sign me? You know what that means? They're going to give you the worst possible contract that they can give you. So very fortunate that Hammarby from Stockholm came in with a guaranteed contract. They're like, we don't need to see you trial. We know what we're getting with you, and just sign on the dotted line. So that was fantastic. The coach, Tony Gustafsson, believed in me. He really saw my potential. He was going to help me get there. And he also stuck with me. There's a lot of coaches who don't stick with a player when they're not doing well. It's easy to back a player when they're killing it, they're scoring goals, they're helping the team win games. But a true coach shows his character when he has a conversation with you. He says he believes in you. He's going to help you reach your potential. Things aren't going well for you, but he keeps giving you little pieces of hope, even though you're not getting the playing time you deserve. But there's a conversation that never goes away. He's still invested in you. And so 6 months in, he gave me that hard conversation, that hard talk, saying, you can go home or you can put your head down and keep training. And I'll decide when you're ready for playing time. Don't complain. I'll let you know when you're ready. And so I did that. I said, my whole life, I've never given up. I'll put my head down. I'll work. I'll show you. I'll prove to you that I can be the starter. And the last 5 games of the year, I started starting every single game. And it wasn't until the last game where I scored the hat trick. And when I scored that hat trick, not only did it click for me, it clicked for the fans, and it clicked for the coach, and it clicked for my teammates. And they're like, oh, this is the guy. Now he's in the spot where he's supposed to be. And so the next season, it really made things a lot easier because I had that belief. I didn't have the pressure that I was putting on myself. I really was putting a lot of pressure on myself to deliver right off the bat, to be the best player, not only on my team, but one of the best players in the league, to get on the national team now, like ASAP, and not be in the national team later. I put a lot of pressure on myself because I wanted to be the best striker that the United States had. I wanted to be the young American that everyone's talking about in Europe. I knew I could be that player. But the pressure that I put on myself throughout my whole life, maybe some would say that's not healthy, but I thrived on that pressure typically.
You just said when you were in that rough first year that something clicked in your head, and it clicked for you. What was the click?
The click was understanding the tendencies of my teammates, knowing that they understood my skill set and my tendencies and how I could succeed in the games, winning the confidence of my teammates as well and the coach. But I'd say ultimately having that calm presence in front of goal. I wasn't rushing because you get so worked up and you get into those positions and you're putting all this pressure on yourself and stress and you don't relax. I finally was able to relax. With all that speed, with all of that force, I still was able to relax in the moments I needed to relax. And so then you play with this calm aura and presence in the match. And that's the moment when you talk about something clicking, when athletes say, oh, it clicked for me. It's being able to play at 100% speed, but you're under control.
Oof. Charlie, I have to tell you, when I was in drama school and acting, we would use the exact same language that when you were in the pocket of a scene, when you were in the pocket of whatever you were rehearsing or filming, the minute that you relaxed and you allowed yourself to breathe is when the magic happened. And I think there's something in that, we all are striving, we all have goals. But if you can allow yourself the luxury, the gift of letting go, relaxing,
100%.
what comes through you in that process is brilliance.
For me, it was something that you've worked towards your whole life, getting in those positions and succeeding and having it be second nature where you don't have to think about it. Yeah. I finally didn't have to think. I was expressing myself without the worry and the baggage of the stress and pressure.
And then we get to what I would call in your life a watershed moment. In 2009. You're on a suspension because you popped someone in the face. Charlie, when I read that, I was like, come on, man. Yeah. I was like, Charlie popped someone in the mouth?
Yep.
You elbowed them. You checked them.
Yeah, I threw an elbow back. We had the national team coach watching the match, and when the U.S. national team coach comes to watch, it was Bob Bradley at the time, everyone knows. So your agent tells you, your club knows. I put this pressure on myself. Okay, there's a big tournament coming up this summer, the Confederations Cup. I have to show to him that I'm ready. Yeah. So you're putting all this pressure, but our team wasn't performing. We're losing. I'm playing against one of my closest friends, Alejandro Bedoya, and it was his first season in Sweden, and he had come from Boston College. So he came to Boston College when I left Boston College, and then he came out to play in Sweden while I was there. So we're playing against each other. He likes to talk. I like to talk, and his team's beating mine. I'm worked up, and this defender's just kicking my heels, off the ball. And I'm like, oh, and I just snapped. And so the ball is down on the opposite side of the field. And I just wind up. He's like, I think he had just kicked my heel again. I just wind up with my elbow and pop. I meant to get him in the chest, but I caught him in the lip. And then I pretended like I was just running off and it was an accident. So he's got a bloody mouth and he's like cursing at me, yelling. And I'm like, wow, I didn't do anything. Nothing happened in the game. I didn't get a card. They didn't see it. They didn't catch it. And this was back before they had video review. So, I play the game. I think I get away with it. I actually leave to go with the national team. So I do end up getting called up. It wasn't until a couple weeks later or a week later, I got a call that they're going to get the video and suspend me for 5 games. But we appealed it. And so I got to play the next game through the appeal because I'm like, the video was so grainy. I'm trying to be like that. I wasn't elbowing. I was pushing off, but I played my final game for the club at home against Malmo, and we won 1-0. I scored the game winner. So in my mind, I left on the best terms with our club, with our fans, because I was able to score and win on for my last game. But it was a learning moment. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Note to self, don't pop someone in the mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't elbow anybody for the rest of my career.
So you're suspended. You come back. You're playing so well. You're in DC. What happened?
So this is one of those moments that forces you to change as a person forever. So we're playing in Honduras. It's a World Cup qualifier. If we win, we qualify for the World Cup, the 2010 World Cup in South Africa, which is what any soccer player would ever dream of. You work your whole life thinking about the possibility of playing in a World Cup. Few get to go to a World Cup. Very few. No matter how successful you are for your club, because maybe your country isn't up to par or they're in a difficult group and qualifying and they never get to play in a World Cup. So here we are playing in Honduras on the road, very difficult place to play in San Pedro Sula, but we win the game. I had 2 assists in the game. I should have scored a couple of times, didn't. But I had an impact and we win. And in the locker room, there's plastic bags everywhere because champagne is all over the place. We're spraying each other. We're chugging it. We're belly sliding in the locker room. Everyone's going crazy. It's what you see on ABC, ESPN, NBC when teams win national championships. When they win MLS Cup or they win the Stanley Cup or the Super Bowl and people are going crazy. That's what it was. It was exactly that type of scene. We get on the plane right after the game. We fly to DC. So everyone's excited. We're going out in Georgetown for that whole Sunday as a team. Everyone's celebrating. We're going to the World Cup, calling my family, friends, everyone. Can you believe it? This little kid from New Hampshire who started playing soccer at 6 years old is going to a World Cup at 23. And not only am I going to a World Cup, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to be a breakout star in this World Cup. I'm going to put my family name on the map because I was on that path. I was doing really well in France. I think I felt like I was changing the narrative on American players in Europe and especially in France, that American players can go there and show that they've got the quality and skill that many people think they don't have or can't have. So we go to DC, we have that Sunday. Then on Monday, we had a training session in the afternoon. I didn't train because I'd strained my groin from that game in San Pedro Sula, Honduras. So I knew I wasn't going to play on that Wednesday game, which is the last game of World Cup qualifying, a game that really didn't have any significance to it because we had qualified for the World Cup. Had we not won in San Pedro Sula, this game would have been very vital and we would have had to win or get a result. So I'm like to my roommate, I tell him, hey, let's go out to watch Monday Night Football. So we go out to Georgetown and the game's about to finish. I'm like, hey, let's go listen to some music in DC. My friend told me that they're gonna have the spot open. My roommate's like, no, I'm playing Wednesday. I can't do that. We got curfew at midnight. I can't do that. But you can. You're not playing. Go ahead. I'm not going out by myself. He's like, no, you could ask one of your friends who lives here. So I call my friend. He's like, yeah, I'll come out with you. So I go, and it's a Monday night in DC. It's not. We're not talking rave or anything like that. For me, I always looked at coming back to the United States, and because you're living in Europe, you enjoy it that much more. So you want to make the most of it. So I'm like, I want to see as many people, I want to experience as many restaurants and seeing, going to movie theaters, doing all the things you can, going out at night because there is no nightlife in the town I was in. So I'm hanging out with my friends about 2:30 and I'm like, all right, I'm about to go home. And there were two girls I had met before in DC and they were leaving too. So they came by the door and they're like, hey, we can drive you to the hotel. And I remember taking that second, third, fourth look to make sure that this was a good idea to get in the car. And my friend's like, you sure? You can just stay here or, stay at my place and I'll bring you, to your hotel tomorrow. I'm like, no, I want to get home tonight. So I get in the car and I put on my seatbelt. And that's the last thing I remember. I wake up, I'm in an ICU. At the time, I completely forgot about being in DC when I woke up in the ICU and I see 35 staples down my stomach. And I thought I was kidnapped and I was in Honduras and they were stealing my organs. I thought I was in a hostel. But, once I realized I had been in a car accident, a significant car accident, one where the passenger passed away in impact and the car had flipped on a median and cut in half and I was in the back half, airlifted to the hospital. All the injuries that I had sustained, broken femur, broken tib and fib in my right leg. So my whole right leg was swollen like an elephant's leg, my wife said. My left elbow was swollen. I had fractured and dislocated it. My bladder had ruptured. My ribs had been fractured. My facial fractures. My left eye socket was shattered and a brain bleed. Luckily for me, the brain bleed resolved on its own, but countless surgeries. And so you realize, people didn't think I'd be able to run again. And I'm like, I have a World Cup in 6 months. And I think that the expectation was, let's just hope Charlie lives a normal life. The embarrassment and shame that I felt putting myself in that position because I broke curfew, 1. 2, I got in a car with someone who had been drinking. 3, just putting my teammates and my coaches and my family in that position. I felt like I just let down everybody. Anybody that was a fan of soccer, anyone that was related to me, that knew me, I let everyone down. And so the only way to move forward was to pick myself up and put myself through the absolute most rigorous challenge that there would be. And that was coming back on the field and having success. as crazy as that may have sounded. And it was like, I'm going to come back for this World Cup. That's the goal. That I'm going to do rehab for 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, whatever I need to do to get back on the field. And it started with just standing up without getting dizzy. I'd stand up for 30 seconds and I'd be super dizzy. Then I had to relearn how to walk. Then I had to relearn how to take a shower and put on clothes and then eat food. I couldn't use my left hand for a couple months because the nerves were damaged and asleep from the trauma. So I had to hope that would come back. They said it was a 50% chance I'd be able to use my left hand again. My right leg's 1.5 inches shorter. So you talk about just being off balance and walking with a limp. I didn't know if I'd have a limp for the rest of my life. So your body adjusts and compensates. But there were just a lot of, and then the brain damage, I would forget words and sentences. I still feel it sometimes that there's something, not 100%, but, I had to relearn how to do a lot of the things that I've done my whole life. And that was probably the most difficult part. I would have thought my leg femur fracture would have been the most difficult to get over, the leg difference, but it was really the movements that I once had. And so there's a lot to take in there, but I think what I chose to see and chose to digest was I had a second chance at life. I had a second opportunity at life to make it right and to appreciate everything that I've been given, to not take anything for granted. And I'm going to get back on the soccer field. And I'm going to appreciate every second of it. I'm going to appreciate all the people in my life. I'm going to try and, put a smile on people's lives, on faces, and try and give them some added motivation or inspiration with whoever I come across. And so that's me. So I completely changed. Not that I felt like I was always a good person, but we can get trapped in our lane sometimes. And I think that I was just so driven to be this super successful athlete, soccer player, that sometimes your view and vision gets slanted a little bit. And I think this accident allows you to really focus on what's important in life. And as great as soccer has been for me and allowed me to travel all over the world, it's just a sport. There's so much more to life than sports. And I felt like I was always about the sport, and then everything else came later. Now I'm all about life. And sports is a great part of life, but it's just a part of life.
Charlie, you said you had to basically learn how to live again after you had this accident. What is that process like when you're literally learning how to put on your clothes again?
Humbling. I was in the hospital bed and had to go to the bathroom in a bedpan, and you can't move. That was the worst. Once you do that, you can do anything and you can get over anything. You always complain about the smallest things. Coffee's not hot, or I spilled this, or this doesn't taste great, or, why is it so, why is it too hot or too cold, or just the small things we always complain about in life. All of a sudden I'm here on this bed. I can't get up. I can't move. I have to go to the bathroom in a bedpan. I have a catheter, and, that in itself was a challenge. And so you go from that to being back on your feet and having to, have the opportunity to still take a shower. I couldn't shower before. Now I can shower. I have to be in, I need help, but I can get in the shower. Oh, I can stand up. I can use my hands to eat. And all of it was extra credit. So for me, how could I complain if I couldn't run like I used to, or move or jump or do some of the things I used to? Because I know what rock bottom is. I know exactly what rock bottom is. I could not move. I was in a bed. I was so heavily medicated that, I couldn't even talk straight. I couldn't even keep myself up for longer than 5 or 10 minutes at a time. So it's almost like eye-opening. It really gives you perspective. And I had perspective like no other, because I had gone through so many ups and downs from a child to being at the top of my dreams and having my ultimate dream in my hands. Then all of a sudden You're hanging by a thread. You shouldn't be alive. So, I had the hospital priest come in my room many times, and he would say to me, "Have you seen the car that you were in? You should not be here. Charlie, I'm telling you right now, there's a reason and a purpose for you being here. That purpose, you'll never know. I won't know, but there's a big purpose. There's a big plan for you because you are still here. So take advantage of this second chance, because not too many people get one." And I'll always remember that. I'll always remember, I just have to look in the mirror and see all the scars that cover my body. But I'll always remember when I wake up, I'm super excited to wake up because I get another day. I'm going to make the most of it. So literally, that's how I live.
Where was your dad during your recovery?
My dad and my mom, my dad and my brother, and my half sister, they flew to DC when they got news of the accident. So I had never seen my dad cry my entire life. And when I had to relearn how to walk again, so this is about 4 weeks in, I couldn't move my legs. And finally I was able to move my one leg about 6 inches. I cried. It was the first time I cried because I think I knew, oh man, this is not going to be a given that I get back on the field, and this isn't going to be easy. And two, when I cried, I looked at my father and he had just one tear coming down his face. So it's a moment that changed. Yeah, it changed me, but it changed everyone around me. It changed my brother, my father, my wife, Nina. Nina at the time was my girlfriend. So she got a call and was like, "Oh, Charlie was in a car accident and he broke his leg." That's all she knew. When she got on the plane, it was a JetBlue plane that had the screens on the TV. Like, "Oh, Charlie Davies, critical condition in the Washington Hospital Center," and showed the car. And she was like, "What?" That's how she found out. So when she came to the hospital and they're like, "Oh, Charlie, he's okay." And I'm on a breathing ventilator and I'm like out, those are things that change you for forever. And so the support system I had around me. So, and then once I got out of the hospital, my family went back to San Diego and I was just focused on getting back on the field. So I was doing like real therapy rehab with my sports trainer from the national team in Delaware. So from that point on, it was just me and Nina for the rest of my recovery. I was able to go back out west to see my family in San Diego when I got my second elbow surgery. And yeah, my support system was Nina, my family, but the fans. They were always tweeting me, sending me. I got about 15,000 letters and I read all of them. The tweets, hundreds of thousands of tweets. And I was feeding off of that support. People don't know the power that they have with words. And really, I was using that as motivation and fuel. They still believe in me. They're counting on me. They're giving me hope. And so, that was really important to me and something that I'll always appreciate.
And you got back on the field.
I got back on the field. And the way I came back is also another storybook in itself. It felt like straight out of a Disney movie. Scoring 2 goals for DC United in the same city where this accident happened, and the same doctors and nurses who helped save my life in attendance. You couldn't make it up. And the same fans who were in that stadium the day after my car accident when the U.S. played Costa Rica. Same signs, same support. It was magical.
And then you marry Nina.
Yeah. That was kind of you. I remember the same priests and nurses coming in the room in the hospital and be like, "This woman did not leave your side.
Yeah.
She put your health first. She wouldn't eat. She wouldn't leave. She would not leave your side. If you don't put a ring on this finger after you get out of here, let me tell you." So I always knew she was the one for me, but that was like hey, now, like, stop playing. And so I knew I had to do it kind of a little bit past the rehab phase. So I waited till the August after the World Cup. We went to Barcelona and I proposed there because I had never been there. I wanted to be a special place. Paris was like too cliche in my mind. So let's go to Barcelona. Let's do something cool. And one of my best friends, Aguchi Onyewu, met us there, and he had been with me in the rehab process because he tore his patella tendon in that game 2 days after my car accident. So we were doing rehab together, and he brought Ronaldinho to basically celebrate our engagement, and caught us off guard. That was a surprise. Like, it's Ronaldinho there giving Cristal to Nina the whole night. So that was special. And then we got married at Boston College in 2012, the place where we met. So that was also special. And yeah, I mean, I was able to still play 7 more years, which is incredible in itself. And I just made the most of every moment. We took, as many vacations as we could and traveled and I'm just very fortunate that everything has happened the way it has.
2016, you have 2 babies, 2 little boys. They come early. And what happened?
They came 3 months early. We spent 92 days in the NICU, emergency C-section. They tell us they don't know what the outlook is. Some babies thrive, some babies don't end up making it. So you have all of this going on for I'd say the first month or so. Every day I'd rush to the hospital after training. So I'm trying to train and play games during this time. I'm not eating properly, definitely not sleeping properly. And so as a professional athlete, you need to recover. You need to be treating your body well. I was not doing that. And how could you? Because you're not putting yourself first. That's long gone. It's all about my family. So inevitably I pull a groin muscle in a game, and our trainer says, "Hey, Charlie, let's get a scan. Let's see how bad it was, because I think this one was pretty bad." We don't always get MRIs. So I went and got an MRI, and then my trainer said, "Hey, you got to get an ultrasound the next day." And I said, "Why do I got to get an ultrasound? You saw how bad my tear was." And he said, "They found a mass in your other leg, in your other groin." And I was like, I knew what mass meant. So I got the ultrasound, and then they told me, "You got to see a specialist, that it's cancer." So I ended up going to Dana-Farber, and they told me it was a liposarcoma cancer in a rare place. I didn't know what that meant. I just thought, oh my God, I'm going to die. I've escaped death once or twice in my life, and here it is, caught up with me. And the 2-hour scan was one of the scariest moment of my life. I felt, oh boy, it spread all over my body, because they said typically this cancer is found on your spine. And so very fortunate that because the boys were born early, it forced me to get injured, and it allowed them to catch this tumor before it really grew and spread, and that they caught it at the right time, because my tumor also had aggressive tendencies. So over time, it would have been caught, but it would have been caught because of symptoms, and at that time it would have spread. So I got 2 angels on my shoulders. I can tell you that right now. I have an angel on each shoulder, and that was the lowest point of my life. The drive to the hospital to tell Nina that I had cancer, because she had cancer when she was 12. She had Hodgkin's stage 4. So she had the chemo and radiation as a 7th grader. And she never talks about it, because she said how scarring it was. I mean, being a bald young girl and still going to school. She said she didn't want to stay out. She wanted to go to school. Incredible. So as tough as I am, I mean, I look at someone who had her challenges, lived through my challenges, lived through another challenge with the boys being born early and being there 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. every single day for 92 days. She did not miss one day. She's the ultimate warrior. I'm the lucky guy here. When my parents came out here last week, they said, Charlie, man, you got a good one. You got a good one. You've lived a life that we could have never imagined. You were, a poor kid in Manchester, New Hampshire. We had welfare a few times in our life growing up. No money, negative bank accounts, debt. And here I am, having raising two beautiful boys with an amazing, beautiful wife, and working dream jobs, not one dream job. I have like 5 dream jobs, and trying to be a great role model and a person that, tries to break stereotypes and breaks down walls and allows people to kind of follow their dreams.
Charlie, what do you think will be your legacy?
That's a good question. I never think about it. Never. I just hope that when it's all said and done, they can say Charlie Davies was a man that lived with integrity and character and was always looking to help others, never for himself, always about helping others and leading by example, leading a life that is full of love and admiration for life.
Charlie, thank you so much for your time today and telling your story. We didn't even touch the amazing work that you're doing on the philanthropy side. That'll have to be episode 2.
I'm always down for episode 2. So
this story is so important in so many ways. Your voice needs to be heard and amplified. And I just think what you've accomplished as a sportsman is incredible. What you've accomplished as a human being is breathtaking. And so I just thank you for your time today and just sharing your story with me.
Thank you. And it was an incredible time to work with you. So I appreciate your guidance. I appreciate this conversation. And I wish you nothing but the best. I know you're going to be super successful. So
thank you, Charlie. Thank you. And to those of you who are watching and listening, remember, we all have a voice. Use yours wisely. Bye, everyone. Thank you, Charlie.